Hi everyone, Jim here. Welcome to my channel. Well, this month, February, is Holmes is Where the Heart Is. And that's a reading event where we celebrate everything regarding Sherlock Holmes. Now, Sherlock Holmes, for those who don't know, is a detective character that was created by Arthur Conan Doyle in 1887. His first appearance was in the story of Study in Scarlet, which ran in the 1887 Christmas Beaton's Annual. It was a periodical back in the day. I mean, many think that his first appearance was in the Strand Illustrated magazine, but that's not entirely true. That didn't happen until he started writing the short stories, which started with A Scandal in Bohemia. Now, Study in Scarlet didn't really make a great sensation when it first appeared. And the second appearance was in the story The Sign of the Four. Now, that didn't appear, I think it was 3 years later, when he had a dinner that was thrown by the editor of Lippincott's magazine. And Oscar Wilde also was invited to the same dinner, and the editor was looking to commission some stories from both Arthur Conan Doyle and Oscar Wilde. So Arthur Conan Doyle decided to resurrect his character from A Study in Scarlet and write the story The Sign of Four. And even that didn't really make that much of a splash for Arthur Conan Doyle. The character and the stories really hadn't become a household name at that point. The stories finally took off when he wrote the first 6 stories, which appeared in the Strand Illustrated magazine. Now, Arthur Conan Doyle's idea was to write a serialized novel, but each section of the novel would be a self-contained short story. Now, in his mind, he felt that would keep people from getting bored, and if they missed an issue, they really wouldn't miss too much because each story was self-contained. Now, that was kind of a trend-setting idea at the time. And those first 6 stories were so popular that he was commissioned to do 6 more that ran in the Strand Illustrated magazine, and those 12 stories became the collected stories in the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes and Watson and the stories became so popular that the sales of the magazine just skyrocketed because everybody loved the character so much. But after the first 24 stories, Arthur Conan Doyle had kind of gotten tired of the character, and he decided to kill him off. And he did that in the story Adventure of the Final Problem, where Sherlock Holmes and Watson went up against Moriarty. And famously, Sherlock Holmes went over the Reichenbach Falls with Moriarty and fell to his death. And that was the way it stood for, well, 10 years in real time. In the story time, it was about 3 years that Sherlock Holmes took this hiatus. After 8 years, Arthur Conan Doyle kind of gave in to the mob mentality and his mother, who wanted to bring the character back, and he wrote a flashback story in the novel The Hound of the Baskervilles. Now, this was a story that was told before Holmes' apparent death. And that novel did extremely well, and people just bought it up, and they were so happy to see Sherlock Holmes back, even if it was pre-deceased version of Sherlock Holmes. And it wasn't until 2 years later, after Hound of the Baskervilles, that he decided to resurrect Sherlock Holmes for good. And that happened in the story The Adventure of the Empty House, which began the collected volume of The Return of Sherlock Holmes. So he had a love-hate relationship with the character. Well, I don't even want to say love-hate relationship with the character. He despised the character. He wrote later in his life, he says, "If the only thing I'm remembered for is writing Sherlock Holmes, then I consider my life a failure." But I like to think that maybe, quite possibly, he came to terms with the character towards the end of his life, because he did write some essays later in his life where he would discuss the character, and he seems to have softened in his hatred towards the character. And I think he realized that, he wouldn't be where he was in his life and his career if it wasn't for the character of Sherlock Holmes. Even though he was a tremendous historical writer, he wrote horror stories, adventure stories, historical epics. The White Company, Micah Clark, he wrote The Lost World, the Professor Challenger series, the Brigadier Gerard series. He really was a very, very prolific writer. And he was knighted, I forget what year he was knighted, but he was knighted apparently for writing an historical account. I think it was of the Boer War. I could be mistaken on that. I didn't really look it up, and my memory is not what it used to be. But even though they say that's why he got his knighthood, we all know that it was most likely for Sherlock Holmes. But I think if he was approached and said, "We'd like to knight you for creating Sherlock Holmes," I'm not even sure if that would have been, possible in the rules and the criteria for knighthood. But I think he would have refused it. But he wasn't above accepting it for writing one of his historical epics. But Sherlock Holmes is a cultural icon to this day. I mean, it started while he was still alive, and still to this day, he is a legendary cultural icon in the UK, and he's known worldwide. He's probably the most recognizable fictional character in the world, and he's recognized worldwide. So that's why we're celebrating Sherlock Holmes in February, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. And I hope you all are. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're reading all kinds of Sherlock Holmes stories. I mean, in the original canon, there's 4 novels, 56 short stories, but there are thousands of pastiche stories out there, and numerous studies and essays on the character and on the stories. So, I mean, it's just a plethora of things out there that you can read. Now, our group read for the group, and I'll mention my co-creators and co-hosts of Holmes is Where the Heart Is, and that would be Mark at Book Time with Elvis, Greg for Another Bibliophile Reads, Randy Ray from The Literate Texan, and Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. So what we're reading for our group read this month is Dan Simmons' The Fifth Heart. Now, I'm almost done. It almost lost me a few times. More than once it almost lost me, but Dan Simmons, he is a brilliant writer, and he kept pulling me back in. And then I got to the point where I just couldn't put it down. So I'm going to finish it up probably very soon, and I've been enjoying it. Now, there's no Watson in here, unfortunately. That's one of my big criticisms in these kind of pastiches that don't have Watson, because Watson, he's not just a narrator or a chronicler. He's a character, a well-rounded, well-drawn character, and I think Sherlock Holmes suffers without him. So he's sorely missed in this story, but that being said, there are other things that carry it along. And in this book, just to make it quick, it's not even a synopsis, just give you an idea what's going on. Holmes is questioning his own reality. He knows he's a fictional character, but he doesn't know whether he's real or he's fictional. And so this is a psychological dilemma that he's going throughout the book, but he's also trying to solve a murder and also a conspiracy against the President of the United States, Grover Cleveland. And it's meanders a little bit, which Dan Simmons tends to do in his writing, and he writes big books. But like I said, it pulled me back in, and I've been enjoying it immensely. And for the first week of Holmes is Where the Heart Is, we're reading one of the long canon novels, one of the 4 novels, and I will be reading The Valley of Fear. I haven't got to it yet, because I've had other things I've had going on. I hope to get to it this weekend and hopefully tear through it this weekend. But yeah, that's Hard Case Crime. version of the book. It's a little sensationalistic, but that's what hard case crime is all about. So I'm going to enjoy that. I've only read it once years ago, and it's probably my least read Sherlock Holmes story. But I hope to enjoy it when I read it again. So other news, I have a book on order. A book I've wanted to read for a long time, and I never got around to ordering it or buying it, and that's The Life and Times of Arthur Conan Doyle by Michael Coren. Now, Michael Coren is a Canadian broadcaster. I used to listen to him all the time, and he's got some very strong opinions, and he's a very interesting guy. And I've been wanting to read this biography of Arthur Conan Doyle for a long time. So I'm hoping to get that before the last week of the event, which is Nonfiction Week, and I will keep you updated on that, and hopefully I will get that and be able to share that with you. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. I will be trying to post a lot more throughout the month of February. I want to do a bookshelf tour of my Sherlock Holmes shelves. I have a lot of Sherlock Holmes books, and I think I might have done that once before in one of my earlier videos, but I don't think I showed them all to you. But I'll try to go do a deep dive into my Sherlock Holmes bookshelf. And that's it for now. I hope you're all reading some great Sherlock Holmes stories. Let me know down in the comments what you are reading or what you will be reading. I always enjoy reading that kind of stuff, reading your comments and seeing what you're up to. So I will talk to you very soon. You guys take care and keep reading.